Hello Wargamers, it's me Callum from Tabletop Banter, and today I'm going to do a little 40k Tactica video. This one looking at psychic support and how I use it in my games more recently and how I used to use it, and also just discussing why I think it's a good idea. So first things first, how I use it in my games, or how I used it in my games previously. So before, I used to max out all the mastery levels of every psyker I could. Tried to really leverage the psychic phase, but I found it quite random. So a good example of this is I played a game using the Space Marine Librarians Conclave against a friend of mine at home, and I stuck them in a drop pod, and they came down turn one, took out half of his guard army, didn't die in the return shooting, took out another, maybe a third of what was left, and they just became this incredible, all-powerful unit, and it was quite ridiculous. I gave them all telepathy for three psychic shrieks, and it was nasty. Now, what I did the next time I played them was a bit different. I put them in different units, and I walked them up the board, and I got unlucky with my psychic phase, and it meant that the majority, I spent like 300 points, maybe just less than, on this unit, and they were rubbish because that 300 points could have been spent on other things, and it wasn't fulfilling its role because of a poor psychic phase. Now the thing with the psychic phase is it's very random. First of all, you got to roll for warp charges, then you got to roll to cast the power, then you got to deny the witch in there. Now all these things, it's not like shooting where you just have to roll to hit and to wound. You have all these things on top of possible to hits and to wounds, or leadership tests for the opponent, and most of them have shorter ranges, so you've got to be quite up close. And I found this was quite hampering when I was trying to use this Librarians Conclave in a really effective way, offensively. Now, obviously, previously sticking all three in one unit as a drop pod unit was a bit different, I suppose. Probably could have run them separately in that drop pod, and that's something I think I'll probably do next time. But it's this idea of how many points, how much of my army do I devote to this psychic phase. My view has changed significantly now, such that I take, well, at the moment in my 1850 point list of Space Marines, Dark Angels, and Imperium, which is very multiple small units and very work in progress. I take two librarians. I take a Space Marine Librarian Mastery Level 1, and my Dark Angels is Mastery Level 2, and I give them different roles in the game. I'm like, okay, Mastery Level 1, he's going to take, I think it's Biomancy that gives you Prescience. I can never, no, it might be, no, sorry, Divination. So I give him Divination for Prescience, and I stick him in the Devastator squad. He's 65 points, that's it. 65 points to give me rerolls on my las cannons, very handy. Now, the other librarian, I tend to roll off telepathy for Psychic Shriek, possible invisibility, and I'll stick in with my Deafening Terminators that I'm marching up the board for shooting. So there are ways that I suppose I've developed my knowledge of the psychic phase. Knowing that it's more random, I leverage it a lot less. So one librarian's like 110 points and one's 65. Now that's obviously still a lot of points, but what I found was the prescience was really good with the las cannons. More hits means more wounds, means more dead enemy models. And I also found that having the librarian with the Terminators was good in the sense that it kept him alive, providing warp charges. It was good in the sense that I can give him an invulnerable save because he's a Dark Angels librarian. I also was able to walk him up the board, and he would get there this time because he wasn't in just a tactical squad. He had 2 up saves around him, which made this unit quite targetable, which also provided my multiple small units to go and do their jobs. And I found the synergy of this list really, really great. I played a very tough Chaos list, which I'll talk about in a different video, where he had 2 Helldrakes and 3 Demons, and then that was quite tough to go against. It was unbound, and I found myself struggling obviously because he had Be'lakor and 2 Demons, one of Nurgle and then one Greater Demon of Slanesh, I think. So I found myself up against it in that respect. I lost by 1 objective point as well. I was devastated. I came so close, and it was literally, I could have won it, but I missed 2 run rolls, and they were both 2-inch run rolls, and I rolled 2 ones. So I was pretty gutted. So what I'm saying here is psychic support is a really, really good element to your army. Obviously, the powers you choose are up to you. I really like divination for your prescience, and it has a perfect timing as well, which is ignores cover. So that's what I got with my las cannons. Even better, like that. If you can get those 2 for your las cannons, great. It's got a couple of other good ones too. It's quite a supporting type of psychic discipline, whereas telepathy is a bit more offensive. So pyromancy is very offensive. Biomancy is quite offensive. So you've really got to look at what you want your psychic to do in your army first. So like step 1, look at your build right now and say, if I were to implement psychic support, where would I place him and what would his role be? Now, obviously before I took them as a separate unit and I was like, that's a unit and a role in itself. I've grown to realise that's not the best idea because you are leveraging a lot on that happening in quite a random phase of the game. So I've moved away from that now, and I've realised it's better as a support element than it is a pure like Death Star element. So then you look at what you have. So for me, my Space Marines, my multiple small units, I want to be helping those units. I want to be helping the units on the board. So more supporting types of psychic discipline are more helpful for my Librarians. Now, if you're an assault-led army, then you're going to want to take a very offensive one because you're going to be up in their face anyway. You might as well use the short-range, high-power, low AP psychic powers and the devastating leadership ones, etc., etc., because that is what you're leveraging. You're going in to attack, so you take an offensive psychic discipline. Obviously, if you're a gunline army, you take the support kinds, and that has maledictions, so ones that decrease the effectiveness of your opponent. And it also has blessings, which increase the effectiveness of yourself. So what I'd really recommend is taking at least a psyker in every game you can. Now, there are exceptions. If you're doing a themed army like Khorne, you obviously probably shouldn't. I won't be. In fact, I was going to paint up a sorcerer, and then I was like, can't give him the mark of Khorne, so I did a Dark Apostle instead. There'll probably be a how to paint a for him shortly, and so that's a very assault-based army. But there are no psychers because Khorne does not care for psychic trickery. But I would try and feed it into most lists, even if it's just one mastery level 1 psyker. What they can do and how they can, I suppose, support your army with its synergy can be very effective, to the point at which it can take a good unit and make it better, and it can take a great unit and make it fantastic. So I'd highly recommend getting hold of some kind of psychic support for your army. Obviously not every army has that available to them, and that's fine. They probably don't need it, and that's why. So if you can, I would, even if it's just 1 mastery level, but I wouldn't go spending all your points on it. I think that's quite wasteful. So yeah, there we go. In summary, take psychic support where possible and try and synergize it with the overall job of your army. Find the right unit as well. So thank you very much for watching. This has been a short little Tactica video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Let me know what you think of this brief look at psychic power, I suppose, and how I implement it, how you implement it. If you did what I did and liked still doing it and found a way that it works, or if you've now shifted to this slightly less points heavy way of playing it. So yeah, thanks for watching. It's been me, Callum, from Tabletop Banter. Don't forget, have fun.